Friends, what the heck? Welcome to iMPACT Intact. If you're watching this, you can see I'm on my own. CJ's not here. CJ had some stuff come up and we were meant to record and it just got away from us. So originally, today on iMPACT Intact, it was going to be the wedding of Brooke Hogan and Bully Ray. But I was going to, when CJ said some stuff come up, he just can't get to it. I was like, all right, I'll run solo. It'll be fine. But I was like, no, I cannot do the wedding of Brooke Hogan and Bully Ray without CJ here. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel okay. So I was like, no, we're not going to do that. So I thought I would jump on here for a brief little bit of time just to say hello. We're here on our new day of Wednesdays. On a new day of Wednesday. So every second Wednesday, we'll bring you an episode of iMPACT Intact. And CJ and I, in 2 weeks, will bring you the wedding of Brooke Hogan and Bully Ray. So we're going to celebrate love in a fortnight's time. But today I thought I'll get on here and kind of just briefly talk to you guys, check in with everything here on iMPACT Intact. Firstly, I want to say thank you for all the love for all iMPACT Intact, because this show has become like a sleeper hit on the Hive. When I kind of first come up with this show and wanted to do something for classic TNA content, I was like, this is probably going to be the poorer performing stuff here on the Hive, but I was fine with it. I was like, whatever, it'll be fine. I just want to do something for me to have some fun, because at the end of the day, I'm just doing these TNA classic runs and iMPACT Intact for a laugh and just to have some fun. So I was like, whatever. If no one listens, no one listens. If you're a person that makes podcasts and stuff like that, you know the drill, you know the feeling. So I was like, I just want to hang out and do these, but it's become like people love it. That episode with the debut of JWoww of all people was like one of our most watched things here on the Hive thus far. So I'm like, cool. All right, if you guys like this, it's just a cherry on top of the fun that we have here on iMPACT Intact. So that's a big reason why I'm like, I can't do the wedding of Bully Ray and Brooke Hogan on my own. It just doesn't feel right to not have CJ here. And I was going to get someone else on. I'm like, no. I can't. It's got to be CJ. It's got to be CJ that's here when we do that wedding. So it is still coming to you. No, we said it originally be today, but it will be in 2 weeks' time. In a fortnight's time from when if you're listening to this on Wednesday, in a fortnight's time. So you'll get that episode. So I thought for today, we'll just hang out for a small little bit of time. And instead of bringing you nothing, I wanted to bring you something. And I thought, hey, let's do a little rundown. I've kind of alluded to the fact that I watched a lot of TNA as a kid. I kind of hung out and loved TNA, and not everyone did. And some people watched it in bursts, but I was pretty religiously watching TNA from like 07 to like 2014. I had little dips out here and there, but for the most part, I was watching a lot of TNA. Like I wouldn't miss it. I wanted to watch it. I would make other people watch it with me. You know, the stuff you do when you're like 12 years old. So around this age, I was like primarily getting into like other forms of wrestling outside of like Raw and SmackDown. I was like, there's more wrestling, and learning what it is and stuff like that too, because a lot of the time you're watching wrestling, you don't really know what it is. You just like, what is this world? And I started to discover TNA, and it's, just started to discover different forms of wrestling and what wrestling really meant. So when I first discovered like TNA, I was like, whoa, there's this other world where all these people that I used to see on Raw and SmackDown are now on here. And I was like, cool, let's get into TNA. So my first dip into TNA was like, I think I've talked about it on this show before. Maybe I haven't, of like late 07. So I'm talking like stuff that was going on was like early Main Event Mafia, going into like Gail Kim winning the Knockouts being the first Knockouts champion. Awesome Kong was just kind of getting into things and stuff like that. So there was things happening in TNA that were like iconic to TNA and whatever. So that was my first kind of dip into the world of TNA. Now, I've been watching wrestling pretty much my whole life. I know it was earlier than this, but I always say this, it was earlier than this, but what I can remember is like my first dip into the world of wrestling was the Alliance, the Invasion in 2001, which is pretty notoriously a pretty stinky time. Well, coming out of the Attitude Era, wrestling didn't really have, it was losing its identity. It was losing a lot of its fan base with the demise of WCW and ECW. And I kind of popped in 2001 and have really never taken a break from wrestling. Unfortunately, I've always been into it and stuff like that. So I guess by this point, I'd been watching pretty religiously for like 6 years, 7 years, 6 years, and learning and discovering stuff other than WWE was really exciting. So I think that was a big part of TNA for me, was like, this isn't Raw, this isn't SmackDown, what's Impact? Like, and it was harder for us to get it here in Australia. I don't believe it aired until a little bit later. So I was like, the internet was still relatively new, at least in a streaming and video standpoint. So like, it wasn't like you could just log onto the internet and grab something, but slowly we're getting more access to that kind of stuff. I also have an older brother who's 7 years older than me. So he was watching a lot of stuff that I wasn't watching. So, and of course, younger brother syndrome, I was kind of like, well, what's he watching? Because I want to watch what he's watching. So he kind of discovered TNA. I started watching TNA with him and blah, 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 blah. Before you know it, I'm watching TNA. Now, we've covered a lot of stuff here on this show of like different periods in TNA wrestling. I think the earliest stuff we've done is '07, but we are going to do stuff that's older. Like, we're going to cover a lot of stuff. We just haven't got there yet. There hasn't been enough episodes to do that. But we are like pretty much covering a lot of stuff that I've watched, even some stuff older. Like, I wasn't watching one of my favorite episodes that we've done is the episode where Mickey James gets pushed in front of a train. I wasn't watching TNA at that time. I was kind of checked out, as a lot of us were. TNA really fell like pretty far down. Like, we all thought TNA was going to die. Somehow it's still here and rocking and rolling and doing its thing now. But, you know, we've covered some stuff after as well. But a lot of people have asked me in the comments and stuff like that, and on our tweets and stuff, of like, why, you know, because we know that CJ was not a TNA person. He knew of it. He knew very little about it. As you're kind of learning, he's kind of watching a lot of these shows for the first time in full. So he's discovering TNA, I guess you could say. Why did I fall out of it? Is a question I get a lot, though, is like, why didn't you, you know, a lot of the dark times of TNA is when Bischoff and Hogan originally came in like 2010. And that's looked at as a pretty poor time. That's when I was kind of liking it the most. Not from, if you look back on it now, hindsight's 2020. It was pretty piss poor and a lot of creativeness and stuff they were doing. They were just becoming WWE light, and I guess that's probably an argument for TNA for out its entire time. But they were kind of just really just, they'll become the Hogan and Bischoff show. And when you look back, it's not great. But I was very into that because I was just at an age where I was like 15 years old, something like that, 14 years old, whatever I was, watching TNA, and I was like, well, holy shit, I'm going to be getting into this because this is freaking cool as hell. And I'm like, what is wrestling? And I was really looking for an alternative to WWE because I'd been so soured on that because I'd watched it for so long and just things weren't great in 2009 and 2010 in WWE land. So anything else was just cool to me. I was like, yes, there's something else to watch. And I think I had heard so much about the Monday Night Wars and learnt so much about the Monday Night Wars. I was like, well, this is cool as hell to have something other than WWE. So I was very much just like, yes, get me in it. Let's go. Again, looking back on it now, it's a pretty rough time in that time. But I checked out just after Hogan had left, Bischoff was gone. I kind of checked out when EC3, not because of him, although when EC3 was like getting pumped up, like he was really becoming the guy in TNA, and you know, they were transitioning back to like a six-sided ring after, you know, all of that. That's when I was just kind of like, I've had enough of this. I'm like, I'm pretty done with this. I was also like 18 years old, and I was just consuming a lot less wrestling because I was too worried about going out and getting drunk or laid or something like that to watch wrestling all the time. TNA also like aired off and on in this country. Again, by this point, streaming was a thing and like you could find stuff on the internet if you needed to find it, but it was on and off. It was very like, it was on some weeks and then it was like behind for 2 weeks. It was just really hard to watch. So it just got too hard for me to like keep up. So I just kind of like dipped out, and I would, you know, pop in here and there when I would hear something cool is happening. Think of a lot of us, we popped in when like the Broken Hardy stuff was happening and all of that. But other than that, I really hadn't watched TNA too much really at all in that point. So yeah, I kind of dipped out in like 2014 and never really like truly like dipped right back in to TNA really ever. I've watched it in little increments here and there, but I don't know, it's not the same. TNA today, it's cool that it's TNA, and it's cool that it's gone back to TNA after being called Impact Wrestling for so long. I thought that was always weird that they called it Impact Wrestling. Like, I always liked TNA. I know it has some negative aspects to that name for obvious reasons, but I always liked the name TNA. I think it is cool, but it is not. TNA now is not what TNA was. It's a completely different product. It's completely different people. It's whatever. So I still enjoy it. I mean, it's just becoming another NXT show. Take that for what you want. But I've just never really got back into it or anything like that. So I've kind of just been like, nah, this isn't for me anymore. But I'll pop back in. I love the inspiration, obviously the Iconics. So I like that. They've always had a strong knockouts division. It's one of the biggest reasons I stayed in TNA for so long is because I was like, wait a minute. You're looking for an alternative to WWE. I'm like, there's women on here that are actually being given the opportunity to wrestle like properly. Like there was still sex appeal in that in TNA, but they had a lot of women, and even the women that weren't as good as a wrestler as some of the other women, they were still given opportunities like the men. Now it wasn't like we're seeing today and they're getting like pretty much equal opportunity. It was still like they had less time and stuff like that, but they were getting to do stipulation matches. They're actually getting to do programs. You had better quote unquote wrestlers in TNA than you did WWE at the time. And I just fell in love with women's wrestling. And I was like, well, this is like way cooler than what WWE's offering. So like I'm gonna be in here. I think I've waxed poetic about that on this show of being like, hold the fuck up. Like the women are the reason, the knockouts division is the reason I stayed in for as long as I did with TNA. As a, along with like finding an alternative and having something different than Raw and SmackDown. Wasn't that I wasn't watching Raw and SmackDown at the time. It was just I was at times way more invested in TNA than I was in WWE because of different reasons. And a lot of the people that are coming over to TNA. I know a lot of people talk about like all the WWE people came in and they always push the WWE guy, and you're 100% correct. But it was cool to see Jeff Hardy and Christian and Kurt Angle, like all of whatever in these places where they weren't in WWE. So it was kind of cool in a sense of being like, as a kid, as an adult watching that now, I wouldn't feel the same way. But we even see that in the conversation with today's wrestling with AEW and even WWE. So it's not like a conversation that was unique to the time. It is what it is. But I know that a lot of people's gripe with TNA was just like they were WWE 2.0. They were trying their best to be WWE, and they weren't WWE. It was hard. I really liked when TNA went on the road and stuff like that as well. Like I thought it was cool. That was one of the best things about the Hogan Bischoff era is that they went on the road, even if it was for a short time. They went on the road, and it was getting out of the impact zone. And I always thought that was a big detriment to them, was just staying in the impact zone. And I was like, get out of here. It's like 500 people, and wasn't always wrestling people in that building. So yeah. But anyway, friends, I just wanted to give you a little bit of a rundown of my time with TNA and why I kind of decided to start this show is just because I haven't watched a lot of these shows in a long time. And when the opportunity came up, I originally kind of had people in mind of, I was like, I want other TNA people to watch this. But it's actually been a kind of a blessing in disguise having CJ on here because he doesn't know TNA and he's watching these for the first time. And I'm kind of living vicariously through him in a sense of just like, oh shit, like he's never watched this. I have. I can kind of give him a bit of a history lesson. And you're seeing it from a different perspective as well of like, there's someone that loved TNA and watched all of this and I'm watching it again versus him who's just like, I've never seen this. What the fuck is going on? Like when we did that TNA Victory Road episode, our last episode with Charmel and Jenna from Survivor. My God, I hadn't watched that in so long, thankfully. But he's watching it for the first time, and it was just so bad. And it's fun to get two different views on that. So I'm glad you guys are liking it. I'm really enjoying it. And don't stress. I know that we had a tweet out saying that we're going to do the wedding of Brooke Hogan and Bully Ray, but shit happens. We're going to do that in 2 weeks, and you'll get to watch all of that unfold old. When I started this show, that was one of the very first episodes that I was like, we've got to do that at some stage. And I couldn't wait any longer. I was like, it's time to do the wedding of Brooke Hogan and Bully Ray. So in 2 weeks, you will get that. Of course, this episode and any episode and anything here on The Hive is powered by W Energy, the clean energy drink. You're going to use the code The Hive, or one word, for 10% off your order at w.gg. It's clean energy. It's no jitters. It's no crash. It's no sugars. It's just good, clean energy. So go to w.gg and use the code The Hive to get 10% off your order right now. You're not only helping us out, but you're also helping yourself out to get some good energy in your system, because you don't want to crash. You don't want the jitters. You want just good, clean energy. So w.gg, use the code The Hive for 10% off your order. Of course, you can follow me at Josh Robinson _00. Just a little quick sample, a little quick tidbit for you guys this week on iMPACT, iNTACT. CJ will be back in 2 weeks. I'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll be back together for iMPACT Intact. Also, we're going to have some guests on very, very soon. And then we're going to get the ball rolling. We're going to get through the rest of the year and then look to get back to a weekly schedule. But for now, it is your favorite bi-weekly show every second Wednesday. You will get us on any home of Wednesdays too. We're now on Wednesdays here on The Hive. Make sure to support everything at The Hive _media, pretty much across the board, except for Instagram. It's _The Hive _media on Instagram. Go and follow us. All the links are in the description below. Rate this podcast 5 stars if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you're watching on YouTube, like, share, subscribe, click the bell, do all the good stuff. Leave a comment. I read them all. I respond to as many of them as I can. So make sure to get that in your systems today. But I'm Josh. I'm out of here. You'll have a good rest of your day, night, morning, wherever it is, wherever you are. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay pretty, stay safe. And we'll see you guys in 2 weeks for the wedding of Brooke Hogan and Bully Ray. Goodbye.